Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei was true king of Underworld X harem? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the xDoug-Dimmadome-x for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. Many light years away in a far-off galaxy, a meteor was hurtling from a planet on fire. This meteor was golden in color, with flames coming off of it due to the speed of exiting the atmosphere of the planet. The meteor didn't get far enough away with the planet imploded and then exploded with the force of a supernova, sending a powerful shock wave across space. The shock wave struck the meteor, sending it spiraling out of control, forcing it to his asteroids upon asteroids, going right through the rock like paper. The meteor was moved off course. Who knows where this meteor will go? Perhaps it will just be lost in space. It was a dark night in Japan. The mountains surrounding Ko were tall, covered in snow and trees everywhere. It was a beautiful night, silent. It was midnight when a bright light exploded in the sky and a golden meteor slammed into the mountainous forest, right into the small lake. A nearby camper was jolted away at the sound of rushing fire and water being evaporated. He had quickly dressed, his shirt on backwards but his jacket hanging loosely off his shoulders, not buttoned up. His pants were luckily on front, but the zipper was undone. He rushed to the nearby lake and his eyes went wide, as through the steamy mist, 6 fiery red eyes appeared and stared at him directly. A forked tongue darted out the mist before going back in. It was then the hunter let out a scream. 3 hours later, the hunter appeared at the base of the mountain, an inquisitive look on his face. He entered the town, looking around. The hunter moved deeper into the city, coming upon a library. He busted open the lock, using brute force, turning on the lights. He skimmed the rows of books, frustration on his features. He let out a roar of fury and knocked the large bookshelf over, which started a domino effect and knocked most of them down except the ones along the walls. He started to leave the library when his foot stepped on a book which caught his attention. He backed up and picked up the book. Frustration still was on his face. He understood the picture. The circle of life. Baby, child, young teenager, young adult, elder. The hunter smiled only to drop the book when his hearing picked something up. His blue eyes quickly flashed fiery red, and in a flash of golden light, a child maybe 6 months old, appeared on the ground. 10 seconds later, 2 police officers, both female, appeared in the library, tasers and flashlights at the ready. Noticing the lights on, they put their flashlights away and moved through the library, calling out for anyone to come out. They stopped when they heard a loud cry, only to come upon a child. It was a very young child, maybe 6 months old, with small hairs coming out of his head. He had chocolate brown eyes. What is a child doing here? The officer in the back questioned. Someone just dumped him here, poor thing. Come on, we need to take him and get him some help. Call the orphanage. They can handle him until we find out who he is and where he came from. The officer in the front said. It didn't matter. No matter how hard the police tried, there was no evidence of who his parents was or anything. He was just a baby. Luck was on his side, however. In only 4 days, a couple who were unable to conceive a child on their own stopped in, and the new child was picked up out of his crib. What shall we name him, dear? The man asked. It took her about 20 seconds to respond, but the name dripped from the tongue like honey. Issei, she spoke. The man smiled. Issei Hyoudou, welcome to your new family. The man said, booping the child on the belly who was being held by the woman. Issei Hyoudou was well taken care of. His father is Goro Hyoudou and his mother is Miki Hyoudou. His father is an ordinary office worker, not really high up in command, nor was he low. He was just average. His mother was a housewife, taking care of Issei as well as maintaining the house. She cooked, cleaned, among other things. They lived in an ordinary 1-story house, with 2 bedrooms, a guest room, a small office room, 2 full baths with one of them in the master bedroom, a half bath which was just a toilet and sink, a living room, a kitchen and a dining room. No basement or attic. They lived in a quiet neighborhood in the town of Ko, which was a medium-sized town as well as quiet, at least until you looked beneath the surface. Issei Hyoudou was 8 years old now. His chocolate brown eyes had golden specks in them, which was a very rare thing to have, never heard of in medical science, but the doctors have found nothing wrong with him. Just a genetic abnormality, which didn't stunt his growth. For 8 years old, he was not chubby, maintaining a slim build. He was currently standing in the living room, watching a TV show. Avatar, The Last Airbender. He was standing up, watching as Zuko and Commander Zhao had their Agni Kai. Issei was smiling happily with a curious glint in his eyes as he mimicked the moves that Zhao was using as well as Zuko. He also enjoyed the music. Mickey was smiling happily from the kitchen where she was making lunch. Such a good boy, she thought before going back into the kitchen after watching her son have fun. Issei was in school and he did his work. He wasn't the smartest person, he wasn't the fastest in terms of learning, but he learned and he retained the knowledge well. He was always eager to learn as well, sometimes too eager. He would read often and above his skill level. Sometimes it was scary to his parents how often he tried to soak up new knowledge, as they said it was stunting his childhood, but he seemed happy so they didn't really stop him. He had no friends of course, but again, Issei was really happy and seemed to enjoy what he does so they didn't really try to help him too much. The TV show ended and Issei changed the channel, this time to another cartoon show. This time, it was One Punch Man. His parents were a little cautious at first about him watching this violent show, but after seeing him laugh to the humor and actually cause no harm with learning, they didn't stop him. They would watch it with him from time to time, when they had the chance. His father even would help play as one of the bad characters and Issei would try to stop the monster. It was something they could do as a family. The current episode of the show was an episode of the second season. Garou was currently fighting Tank Top Master along with the other Tank Top heroes. Issei smiled happily and cheered. Fist of flowing water crushing rock. Issei exclaimed as Garou beat Tank Top Master with a counter. He exclaimed, performing the on-screen ability with perfect accuracy. His mother checked in after hearing that, before shaking her head with mirth. She was happy for her son's happiness, but sometimes she worried about him. Worried he might use something he's seen on TV on his classmates, or something, but until such issues occurred, she'd allow him to be a kid. Issei was an average kid despite his weirdness. His physical abilities were average with kids his age, speed, strength. All of it. His entire being was average, except for his aptitude for learning. He even was learning languages at a higher rate, with English and Japanese being almost fluent for his age. It was surprising, but it wasn't being looked at. Why look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Another thing that was strange about the boy was his metabolism and appetite. Issei seemed to always be eager to eat, never seeming to be full, yet he remained with his slim build. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with him, no tapeworms or parasites. What they did find was his metabolism was extremely high, higher than any on record. His parents were the only ones keeping the doctors from performing experiments on the boy. Despite his metabolism, he's never eaten his parents out of their house. He's always seemed to stop eating when he noticed it's been too much. He was just eager to eat. Issei was now 12 and he was in 7th grade. Nothing of note had occurred, except Issei had gotten into trouble once with the authorities. Issei had decided to join a band of delinquents, and got Issei to go into a construction site and spray paint some walls with symbols. When the police came, the group had ratted him out and only he got in trouble. Issei refused to rat them out, even though they abandoned him. Little did his parents know, Issei had watched a few gangster movies and refused to be a snitch. He watched snitches were always punished severely. It seems Issei took movies seriously. Perhaps this will cause him problems down the road? Nobody knows. Issei had turned 14 and within a week, Issei was once again in trouble. In 8th grade, Issei had once again came upon the group of delinquents, and they had tried to get him back into the group to do something. Issei had refused and insulted their group over abandoning him. The leader had attacked him out of rage and Issei had retaliated, bashing the leader with a fist by performing the counter move he saw on One Punch Man. The jaw of the teen was dislocated from just the single blow. The others started to gang up and Issei had fought back, countering each hit with the same move, taking the group of 6 down with ease. Issei was suspended from the school for 2 weeks, but his parents didn't punish him. He was the one who got attacked first and fought back. They were proud of him, especially his mother for standing up for himself instead of being the one who got hurt. This was not the first fighting incident. Every other month, Issei had found himself in another fight, this time outside of school so no one would find out. Issei was now seeking it. At first, the fight in school was just self-defense, but Issei had found an underground fighting ring and started to participate. Issei had gone undefeated, untouched. A big grin was always on his face when fighting, and if his parents knew they would have been alarmed, but every time he came home, he just seemed so normal like always. At 15, Issei had grown out of this phase, right as he was entering high school. Ko Academy had schools all under the same name, all at different locations in the town, with all grades separated properly. It was a blessing for parents so they didn't have to keep changing schools. At 15, Issei stopped his fighting in the underground ring, having no more challenges there, as well as getting his fill. He returned to his studies moreover, learning faster than before. His first year of high school went well at the boys' academy, but when Issei got an acceptance letter for the next year, he was surprised. The prestigious all-girls academy, which was well known for high marks and the best students, was opening its doors for male students, and was giving out acceptance letters to those that had passed. Issei was going to a previously all-girls school. How fun! Issei was never big into girls when he was younger, never finding a point in chasing them like his peers had. His focus was studying and trying to be as normal as possible, as if he wanted to blend in. So this would only suit his needs, going to a school for an increase in his learning. So, on his 16th birthday, which was 2 weeks before the start of classes, he had left the house to go visit the school which had just finished its remodeling. He wanted to go see where he was learning and see if he could get some extra learning in there, as well as study the school grounds. Upon arriving the school grounds, Issei had walked up to the large glass doors, staring up at the 4-story school. This is a strange-looking school, 4 floors of classrooms for this small town. Seems odd, he thought to himself. No matter though, just have to blend in as always, appear human. Issei was 6 feet tall, and his body had filled out greatly with muscles. He had started to work out, as he told his parents, when he was only 13. His brown hair was originally long and spiky, with the hair ending at 2 large prongs going upwards like a wolf's ears. This was his hair for many years, but decided to opt for a more normal hairstyle as he entered high school. Blending in and all, he was currently wearing tight-fitting pants that showed off his leg muscles and a tight-fitting t-shirt, once again showcasing he was strong. However, there was a jacket on his shoulders, so this hid most of his muscular form. Issei's eyes had changed color as he had gotten older, losing the brown coloration. His eyes had turned into a gold color like pure gold, as well as his pupils having more of a reptilian or feline-like shape to them. The doctors once again said that this wasn't harmful, if only increasing the ability for him to see at night. Issei heard someone approach from behind and glanced over his shoulder, noticing it was a group of girls in what looked like kendo outfits. Sword users. Interesting. Issei turned when he heard one of their voices. What are you doing here? The school isn't open. A woman with pink hair asked with suspicious undertones and narrowed eyes. Issei smirked. I guess I could ask you the same question, couldn't I? Don't avoid the question, smart ass. A girl with long brown hair stated. Issei looked up at the sky and the front of the building. The school is opening soon, and I believe it's finally becoming co-ed. I will be one of those being accepted. Great, so you're one of the 50 perverts being let in? Disgusting. Disgusting? Pervert? Now I have done nothing wrong and you judge me? Sounds like you're the disgusting one to me. Once again, I'm surrounded by people under my intellect, Issei said with a sigh, walking down the steps towards them, so he could leave. As soon as he passed the girls, who were shocked by what he said, his hearing picked up the sound of a wooden blade cutting through the air. Issei turned on his right heel and brought his left hand in a blade strike, using the left side of his hand to cut through the blade down the middle, cleaving right through the pommel and the handle, effectively turning the blade into 2. Issei darted forward, getting into her face with a sinister grin on his face. Don't try to attack me again, or I won't be so kind next time, he said before his face turned to the bored look. He nodded his head to the girls and left the area. The girls all stood there with a look of fear in their eyes, as all they saw when he left was an image. The image of a golden creature with 6 fiery red eyes. A king. Issei returned home and had his birthday party with his parents, having cake and present as well as a movie marathon. This movie marathon was a cult classic of Alien. The days went by normally after that. Soon though, Issei will find himself in a world that he never knew existed. The supernatural. It was the start of the school season, and Issei was still sleeping. Snoring away, quite loudly, as he was curled up on his bed. Never before had he experienced such comfort. Sure, his home planet was comfortable, but he was always in the other form. This human form had so many different pleasure sensors compared to his other form that it was different, and much preferred. As Issei's body experienced this pleasure, he developed a very unfortunate side effect. He was an extremely heavy sleeper. In the background was his alarm clock, blaring away an annoying symphony of sounds. A knock on his door could be heard somewhat, and then a sigh. The door opened and Issei's mother strolled in. She turned off the alarm and Issei was still sound asleep. Such a good kid. I just can't be too mad at this. It's not his fault, she thought before gently shaking the teenager. Issei opened his eyes and let out a yawn, before sitting straight up. It seems like he was always full of energy, even right after waking up. Strange indeed. Oh, hey mom. Morning already? Yes, and you slept through your alarm again. I did? Issei asked, rubbing the back of his neck. He saw this in many animes where the protagonist would rub the back of his head sheepishly. His blending and strategy was working well. No slip-ups as far as he knew. Yes, you did. I really should follow through with my threat of getting you that shock collar, shouldn't I? His mother teased with a grin. No. I promised to wake up on time tomorrow, he said. His mother shook her head, knowing full well he couldn't really help it. Sure, now come downstairs. Breakfast is on the table. It's your first day of school, so I made your favorite food. Chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream and chocolate sauce? Issei asked, getting super excited. This time, it wasn't an act. Issei had developed a severe sweet tooth. His mother giggled at the childlike enthusiasm of her son. Yes, as well as chocolate milk. However, you have to eat your orange if you want to eat your pancakes. Okay. I love oranges, Issei said, scrambling out of bed and rushing to his dresser in his underwear to grab his clothes. His mother stared at the naked back of his son and shook her head. So different from what I've read. No sense of shame or embarrassment about his body. Have I sheltered him too much? He needs a girlfriend, she thought before leaving the room and heading back to the kitchen. Issei only took a minute or two to get dressed in his school uniform before he started sprinting down the stairs, his footsteps loud coming down the wood. His father had to jump back from the bottom at the bolt of lighting that shot down the stairs. His son was that fast. Not literally. Careful, son. You almost made me into one of your pancakes. He spoke with amusement, smiling at his son. Sorry, Dad. I didn't see you there. He spoke. His father chuckled and joined his family at the table. Both parents watched with amusement as their son scarfed down the chocolatey breakfast, barely evening chewing and just using the chocolate milk to wash it down his throat instead of swallowing. Issei had 4 pancakes in his stack, and was done with them in a minute. He at least had the decency to not use his fingers or lick the plate clean, though he scraped up all the chocolate and whipped cream with his spoon. Did you even taste it? His mother asked, amused, and Issei grinned, his teeth all covered in chocolate. This got his parents to chuckle. Go brush your teeth, you animal, before you head out for school. Issei nodded and dashed out of the room to the bathroom across his room and quickly brushed his teeth. He stared at himself in the mirror. His childlike wonder on his face melted away into a serious face. A new school, new problems, have to maintain my cover. Cannot allow this world to realize what I truly am, he thought with a clenched fist before heading into his bedroom to pick up his bag. He didn't pack it the night before, as he was told to do, so he quickly scrambled to find his books. The school had already sent the textbooks to the home ahead of time, instead of giving them to Issei in school. He didn't have to bring the textbooks to school, but he wanted to be prepared. Unlike most kids, Issei enjoyed learning. He enjoyed expanding his knowledge. The last thing he put into his bag was a manga, One for One Punch Man again. Issei had grown to really like anime, and this one was a big one for him. It was funny and full of action. He even had a favorite character, and it wasn't a hero. Oh noes. Issei walked down the stairs, not really rushing down this time. He passed his parents in the kitchen. Have a good day, sweetie, his mother said, waving to the boy. His father, on the newspaper, put it down and smirked. Don't go peeping on the girls. He teased, getting Issei to scoff and wave. Bye. Love you too, sweetie, his mother said, waving as Issei shut the front door. Issei arrived at the school about 2 minutes late. He entered the school building, and didn't seem ashamed, but he didn't seem cocky either. He didn't really think too much about being late. He thought that if he had everything perfect, it would seem suspicious, so he purposely came late today, especially on his first day of school. After all, no one would expect a bad boy to be an alien who is trying to blend in, right? He knocked on the closed door of his classroom and opened it. The teacher turned and frowned. Late on your first day, he muttered. Name? He asked. Issei Hyoudou. Sorry I'm late. Wasn't feeling well this morning, but I'm okay now, he said, bowing his head. That's all right. Take a seat over there in the back near the window. It's the only open up over there. Thanks, Issei said before taking his seat. Eyes went towards Talon, several boys and girls staring at the teenager. Issei had researched a lot about psychology. If you wanted to blend in, you don't want to look like you were blending in. So Issei made sure he didn't look too average. He had an average haircut and color, but his eyes were a bright golden color with black pupils, and he was muscular. His eyes had white sclera like a human, but the iris of the eye was golden. Not like he was overflowing with muscles, but they were defined. As such, the women eyed him with appreciation, while the boys eyed him with envy, seeing as how he was garnering the attention of the female populace. Two eyes in particular stayed on him, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and lust. Mostly curiosity. The two girls were two of the girls in the kendo club from 2 weeks ago who had hit him with the sword, only for he to terrify them. Unknown to him, he was revealing more and more about himself to people as his aura when he was angry was unchecked. Right now, he seemed all human, but when they hit him and he attacked back, some of his aura leaked out and they saw a monster. Yet here he was all innocent looking. The teacher finally got the attention of everyone. Alright everyone, normally, this would be left until later next week, but I think giving you guys another week of preparation would be good. I want you all to research and look into clubs around the school, as all students must have some sort of after-school activity. It doesn't have to be in the school. If you volunteer, you can fill out some paperwork and that will excuse you. For the rest of you, everyone must do something. Issei went into his dream world, going into thinking mode. A club? That's new. Guess I can't go home right after school. What a chore, he sighed audibly, only to hum. Though if I find the right one maybe it won't be so bad. Get some new knowledge about this world I don't have. Yes, I have to do some looking around. He then raised his hand. Teacher, how would we all go about finding all the clubs? Is there a list? Issei, was it? Yes, there is a list and I have it on my desk. You all can have one before you leave for the day. Issei nodded and the teacher changed topics. That didn't interest Issei one bit. His mind went elsewhere. Ping pong. A sound filled the air from the speakers on the wall above the door. It was the end of this classroom session. It was the end of the first period and lunch would start. After that, they were free to look around the school. They could also look for clubs if they so wished to. Issei's daydreaming really passed the time. The teen grabbed his bag and scooted back on his chair before pushing it back underneath his desk. He placed the bag on his back before heading to the front to grab one of the papers. He was one of the last kids in the classroom, as Issei didn't really feel like going anywhere in any hurry. He did want to go home, but that wasn't going to happen for a couple more hours. After taking the paper, his eyes immediately started to scan it. He had sat down outside of the door with his bag to his right. He dug out a snack cheese and started to nibble on it. Swim club? No, already know how to swim, and it's not that fun. Photography club? Yeah, don't think so. Student council? Maybe, but probably not. Sounds like too much responsibility. Karate club? Who? That sounds interesting. Might have to go there and take over. Show them my fighting style. Well, the one I copied from Garu. Issei chuckled under his breath. Now what's this? Occult Research Club? The heck is that? Now that has an interesting name to it. Think I might have found my club. Issei stood up and went back into the classroom. His teacher was there eating his meal. He looked up and raised a brow. Issei? Something I can help you with? He asked politely. Just directions. I am looking for the Occult Research Club. They are located in the old school building, he said, pulling out a piece of paper with the school's layout. He pointed out where it was, near the baseball field and the gymnasium. Issei had saw it entering the school. Thank you, Issei said, leaving the room to make his way towards the building. He was hoping that maybe the club was there having lunch. He would at least, as he wasn't the most sociable person. It took him 5 minutes at his pace to enter the old school building. It was unlocked, which made sense being the club headquarters. He didn't really know where to go from there, as it was such a large building, but decided to make his way up the stairs to the second floor. He looked around once at the top and heard very, very, very faint voices that he couldn't pick up to understand. He approached the door and knocked 2 times. It was instant. Come in, spoke a regal-sounding voice. Issei entered the room. Thank you, he spoke. He looked up from his bowed head to the surprised looks from 2 women. There was a red-haired buxom beauty behind a desk and a black-haired buxom beauty to her right. Both of them were absolutely stunning to look at. The black-haired once turned to redhead and whispered, before she seemed to placate the black-haired girl. Can we help you? She asked cautiously. I can't detect any sort of magic from him. He's human, but he bypassed the suggestion barrier? She thought. Yes. Is this the Occult Research Club? I was told it was in the old school building, but I think maybe I'm lost. Yes, this is the ORC. Can we help you? Spoke the black-haired woman. Yes. I would like to ask if I could join. Well, I would like at least to know more about the club. I was told I had to pick a club for my school and well, I'll be honest. This sounded so much better than the photography club, he said with a wry smile. This got the girl to giggle, only to stop when the red-haired woman glanced at her. Well, this club researches the occult. Like ghost activity and whatnot, the redhead replied to Issei. She was about to continue when Issei smiled brightly. That sounds like a lot of fun, so I would like to join. Would that be a problem? The two women shared a glance before the red-haired one made a decision. It won't be a problem, but because it's earlier than the normal time for students to apply, we would need to speak to the student council for permission. It shouldn't take too long, she said with a warm smile. Most wonderful. Could I perhaps eat my lunch here? I'm not really wanting to walk to the auditorium and I'd rather eat somewhere more private. The girl nodded. That would be all right. I am Rias and my friend here is Akino. We'll leave you here so don't destroy anything, okay? She said with a playful grin. She was putting on an act, not that Issei could tell. He smiled and took a seat on a couch, opening his bag to pull out a homemade bento. Ah, Mom's cooking, he said happily, digging into the meal. The two girls shared a look and left the room, leaving Issei behind. Rias and Akino arrived at the student council room, barging in with urgency. A black-haired woman with a bob cut and glasses stared at the pair. You know, knocking is also acceptable. A human bypassed our suggestion spell on our school building and is asking to join the ORC. Rias said, interrupting the sarcastic dry humor from the girl. This got the bob-cut girl to sit up. I see. This is problematic. Are you sure he is human? Akino nodded. I couldn't detect any sort of magic or supernatural ability from him. Could he be hiding it? The president asked. Possibly, Rias said, frowning. Sona, what do I do? I can't turn him away or that will cause some problems down the road. I don't want to risk attempting to use a spell on his memory either, just in case he's immune to it too. I had to come here. No, you were right to come here, Sona said, laying her chin on her knuckles while her two pinky fingers started to tap together in thought. After a good minute of thought, she hummed. Let him join. We don't have much option here. I will talk to my sister and your brother for further instruction, but for now, let him join up. Just keep an eye on him and make sure he's not a risk. Rias and Akino nodded before heading back to the ORC room. Upon arriving, they put on their best fake smiles. We talked to the president, and we have permission to give you early access to our club. Welcome. Woo-hoo. I am Issei Hyoudou and I am in your care, he said, standing up to bow to them. So, what shall I do after school? Rias looked like she was about to open her mouth to say something but she clenched shut. Akino decided to speak. Come here after school. I'll have some tea brewed for you. Issei smiled softly. That sounds wonderful. Thank you. He spoke, before he left the room. He finished his lunch. Rias and Akino looked at where he was sitting and Akino giggled. What's so funny? This is just an interesting day. First, a human joins our club and then he didn't even leave a crumb behind. Not even Kiba is that clean, she said. Rias rolled her eyes and chuckled. Well, I will agree it's an interesting day. School had ended rather quickly for Issei, for he was actually excited. He was excited to be part of this club. He honestly thought he was gonna learn a lot about the occult. Little did he know, his learning was not what he expected. Issei entered the ORC club room after knocking. As he entered, Akino and Rias were the only ones in the room. Issei gave them a wave. Hello? He said before taking a seat on the couch. Hello, Issei, Rias said with a warm smile. This one seemed less fake, but still fake nonetheless. Not that Issei could tell. He had no idea what was really going on. Akino came by and placed a cup of tea in front of Issei. Issei picked it up and gave it a sniff. His eyes widened. This smells really good, he said before taking a sip. He blinked again and grinned. This is amazing, Akino, wow, he exclaimed. Akino smiled warmly, this time not fake at all. She truly enjoyed the compliments. Thank you, she said. The door opened a few seconds later and Issei turned his head. There was a short girl with white hair and golden eyes. Her hair had two long bangs going past her shoulders and several hanging in front of her forehead. The back had a short bob cut. There was also a young man that entered. He had short blonde hair and blue eyes. There was a mole underneath his left eye. The pair looked at Issei before staring at Rias with confusion. She didn't respond, and since she was calm, they didn't question it. They would get explanations after. The girl is Kaneko Tuju and the other is Kiba, Rias said. These are the only other members of our club. Oh? It's not very big, but I also have no experience, so maybe it is big. Relative to the swim club, we're very small, Akino said. But we're not tiny by any means. There are other clubs with only 2 or 3 members. Oh, Issei said before standing up. He bowed to the pair. It's nice to meet you. I am Issei Hyoudou. It's good to meet you. I hope we get along. Kiba said. Kaneko stared at Issei. Word. She said, giving him a peace sign before taking a seat next to him. Issei took his seat as well and pulled out a small Tupperware container. He opened the lid and pulled out a piece of chocolate. This immediately attracted the attention of Kaneko, who stared at his chocolate. Noticing the staring, Issei took a piece of chocolate and offered Kaneko some. The girl grabbed it and immediately started nibbling at it. Not even a thank you, but Issei didn't seem to mind. He actually chuckled a bit. Akino approached Rias and whispered, "What are we going to do with him here? We can't just do our jobs." She whispered, "I'm working on it. Sona should get back to us with word from the higher-ups." Rias whispered in return. Akino nodded and took a seat. There was a knock on the door, and then it opened after Rias welcomed whoever was at the door. Issei looked over from his chocolate and spotted a girl with bob-cut hair. It was Sona, not that Issei knew her name. Rias stepped out of the room after seeing her, and Issei could hear hushed voices. Not even the higher-ups know what we should do about him here. There was some discussions about eliminating him, and just make his parents think they lost him in a car accident. There was some talk about getting him to be a devil. There's nothing concrete right now. That being said, there is a consensus that we keep him under surveillance. Your brother will be sending someone to take a look at Issei and see if he's hiding anything," Sona said. Rias frowned. "I'd really rather not have to kill him. He's been a very sweet boy from what I've seen." "I agree. Killing him would be unfortunate, but it isn't our call," Sona said. It was then Rias placed a magic circle to her ear with her right hand. "You need to move Issei out of the room right now," spoke Rias's brother. "Why?" Rias asked. "You are going to have company soon and I couldn't stop it." Rias immediately hung up and went into the room. "Issei, could I?" Rias was interrupted as a magic circle appeared in the open space behind the couch on the opposite of Issei. Across from Issei's couch was another couch, so behind this couch was the magic circle. It was a bright orange. Flames then rose up and roared to life. Issei stared at the circle with curiosity. "Magic? I guess this is the Occult Research Club." "Makes sense," Issei said and nodded. Akino glanced over at Issei and she was surprised. He's surprised but he's not freaking out? This is strange. Something isn't right here. Out of the circle came a man. He was quite attractive if Issei was being honest. At least he thought this was what passed for attractive. "Ah, and Riser has arrived in the human realm. Such a disgusting place. I've come all this way to see you, my beloved Rias." "Why is he talking funny?" Issei thought before shrugging. He then raised his hand. Akino giggled. "You don't need to raise your hand, silly boy. You aren't in class. But this is still a learning session, right? May I ask what kind of learning we are doing today about the occult?" "Rias, is that a human in your club?" Riser asked, raising a brow as he stared with thinly veiled disgust at the teenager. "Yes, his name is Issei Hyoudou." "Whatever. Riser has come all this way for you anyway. A human concerns me not." "What are you doing here, Riser?" Rias asked with disgust in her voice. She does not like this man. This isn't training or learning. This is real, Issei thought. "What does it look like?" "I'm here for you," he said, wrapped his hands around her waist and pulling her close to him. His hands started to move down to her, but when she pulled away with a growl, "Don't touch me." "Why haven't you figured it out yet?" "I have no intention on ever marrying you, oh darling Rias. Riser believes your family's situation is too dire for you to afford to be so selfish. I will not bring my family to ruin Riser. I also will not deny you any right to our name, but let me make this clear for you. My husband will be my choice, not my family's choice nor yours. For the last time. I will not marry you." Riser immediately got up and grabbed Rias by her chin to force her to look at him. "I have the reputation of the House of Phoenix to uphold. Besmirching it is unacceptable. I have to do something," Issei thought. He got up and walked over to the pair, unnoticed by them. It was then out of nowhere, Riser was picked up by his vest as well as the back of his pants. He was hoisted up by Issei. "Unhand me, filthy human," Riser said, completely shocked at Issei. "I will, when I take out the trash," Issei said, thinking he was so cool. He opened the door and literally tossed Riser out, actually sending him far enough to tumble down the stairs. He slammed the door shut and clapped his hands as if ridding himself of germs or whatever. "There, problem solved. He won't be a problem anymore," Issei said confidently, only for Issei's hair on the back of his neck to stand up. It was a warning. Issei turned, only for a fist coated in fire to connect to his jaw and send him flying. Issei's body connected with the ceiling, then the wall, then finally the floor. Issei! Rias, Aquino and Kiba exclaimed, all rushing to his aid. Filthy human! You dare touch me? I will torch you until you are nothing but ash, he exclaimed, only for a white circle to appear nearby and a woman with back-length silver hair with long braids on each side. There will be no further violence. My master will not tolerate you killing a human, Riser, Grafia said. Riser backed down immediately. When told such things by the ultimate queen, even Riser is fearful. Grafia walked over to Issei, who sat up quite quickly. He rubbed his chin and stood up, staring at the maid. Grafia stared with surprise at how quickly the boy got up, including everyone else. Human and still standing after a fire-infused punch? What was going on here? My master also sent me here to handle this conflict. So should communication should break down, I have been given another option by my master. Of course he did. What is it now? Ria said with an exasperated sigh. She was just having a wonderful day. Should my lady put her own personal preferences ahead of her family, then she is to settle this via a rating game with Lord Riser. A rating game? Fire-infused punches? This is interesting. It's like straight out of a T.V show. Is this the part where I'm supposed to the cool dashing knight and save the damsel? Issei thought. He then grinned. I volunteer for this battle. I shall take on this Riser fellow in this game. I will save Rias from her marriage. Everyone, including Riser, stared at Issei as if he had grown a second head. Lord Riser does not wish to kill a human today despite your arrogance. Sounds like to me you're just a coward. Oh wait, your name is Riser Phoenix? Yes, boy. The house of the prestigious family Phoenix. You mean those big flaming chickens? Ouch. No wonder Rias doesn't want to marry into a bunch of cowards, Issei said with a grin. He felt good. This was straight out of his animes. Well, kind of. Grafia turned around and placed a hand to her ear. What shall I do? Let him play. I am curious to see what will happen. Just let Riser know that even if he wins he'll have to face Rias. This human, he is intriguing. I have been given permission to allow this human to play instead of Rias. However, the only change is that Rias will not be forced to marry you should the human lose. Acceptable? Grafia asked Riser. This is unacceptable. If there is no risk for me to lose the game, then it's not fair. Issei said. Allow it, so be it. The rating game shall be now. You can't be serious, Rias exclaimed, looking around. I refuse to accept this. Grafia turned to Rias. My master's word is final, she said, teleporting Issei away. No! Rias exclaimed, growling. She swore, only to get teleported away herself by another red circle. You! Why are you doing this to me, big brother? She asked, her hair twirling in her power of destruction. Relax. You won't be marrying Riser when Issei loses, he said. I only said that to placate the boy. Why is he playing at all? Are you trying to kill him? He intrigues me. From what I've seen through Grafia's magic, he doesn't seem scared at all. Surprised, sure, but scared? Humans can't handle this knowledge usually. I have to see what is going on with this boy. The more I can test him, the more we can figure this out, and if he dies, then I'll take full responsibility, he said with a frown. Issei found himself teleported to the exact spot he was just in earlier. Except he could look out the window and see the sky was different. It was a weird shade of purple, glowing and flickering. This is weird, this occult stuff is really neat, so a fight, huh? And with powers? Might have to unleash some of my natural abilities, Issei thought. The speaker on top of the door came to life. That wasn't there before, he said. Greetings. I am Grafia and I shall be the arbiter for this match. This match will be between Issei Hyoudou and Riser Phoenix's peerage. Riser's base is located in the student council room. Issei's is located in the occult research club room. Whenever Issei is ready, the match shall begin. I'm ready. Let's get ready to rumble, Issei said before grinning. He sounded so cringy, but he thought he was cool. He walked outside of the club building and made his way towards the gym. He thought it would be a good place to go to get to the office. As he entered, there were 5 people waiting for him. The first one that caught his attention was a young girl with blue hair and light brown eyes. Her hair had 4 short ponytails, with 2 up and 2 down. She was wielding a staff. I'm Mira. She spoke. I'm Xuelan. Spoke another. She was a well-endowed girl of Chinese descent wearing a navy blue qipao. She had shoulder-length black hair and blue-green eyes. She had 2 Chinese-style buns. The next ones were twins. I'm Lee and that's Nell. The one to the left spoke. They were very young girls, really young. Younger than Kaneko for sure. They had turquoise hair with yellow ribbons in their hair. They held chainsaws behind their back. I'm just watching, spoke the next. It was a girl that looked similar to Riser. He was going to guess that was his sister. I'm Ravel Phoenix. Called it. I get 4 beautiful girls all to myself? Oh, you all shouldn't have. Issei said with confidence before smirking. Who's first? You got a death wish, spoke Zilan. Perhaps. Let's see what you got, or shall I take you all on at the same time? We're under strict instructions by our master to make this a fair fight. Human, Mira said, crossing her arms with her staff between her small. Whatever suits you, Issei said, getting into a stance. Let's try a little reptile, he thought. He was standing straight up with his body turned slightly to the right. His left arm was extended outwards, but not straight out. His forearm was slightly up at an angle and the fist was open with his fingers going downwards like a claw. His right arm was about head level with his hands slightly above his head. His right fist was also opened, but his wrist was pointing more down, and his fingers also extended down like a claw. I'll handle this so we can go home, Xiaolan said. Xiaolan rushed forward faster than Issei expected. His inexperience didn't allow him to adjust to this. Xiaolan tornado kicked Issei right in the jaw, sending him spinning in a barrel roll across the gym. He struck the ground and rolled. He lifted his right hand to his jaw. It was dislocated. Shit, that hurt a bit, and dislocated this fragile human body. Would be so much easier to transform, Issei thought. You're tougher than you look. I'll just end this quick then, Xiaolan said before rushing at Issei. Issei didn't know how to relocate his jaw, but he couldn't worry about that now. Kano. Issei immediately reached out with his hands and gripped the ankles of the girl, who sent out a roundhouse towards Issei's solar plexus. The girl's eyes were wide. What? He reacted to my speed? Xiaolan said, only to be once again surprised as Issei tugged her forward, only to back up and extend his arm, then rush forward. He clotheslined her right into the ground, sending her down hard. That's one down, he thought, turning to the others only to dodge to the right as Xiaolan lashed out with a kick to Issei's side, only to whiff. Issei had turned his natural abilities up higher after the kick, so this was a piece of cake. What are you? Xiaolan demanded, glaring at Issei. She then noticed his dislocated jaw, so he couldn't respond. I will take you down. Stop playing with your food, Xiaolan, Ravel said, glaring at her. Xiaolan roared and charged forward, sending out another side kick, but Issei was ready. He pushed forward into her area of attack, getting right into her. He quickly spun her around before wrapping his arms around her waist. He then jumped into the air backwards, before slamming Xiaolan onto her head, snapping her neck. Can't reveal too much of my power, though I have to stay within the limits of what I see, he said with a nod to himself. One of Riser's rooks. Retired, spoke Grafia. I see defeating them will remove them from the game, so I have to defeat everyone and Riser. This will be interesting. Very educational, Issei thought. You want us to what? He's only a human, Mira replied, only to cringe at the loud voice through her magic circle. Yes, master, she spoke. The 3 remaining fighters turned to Issei. You've went far enough. We'll have to stop you now, she said to Issei. Issei merely tilted his head, curious. This was a new development. The 2 chainsaws revved up and the twins rushed from the left and right of Issei, while Mira went into middle. I need to remove the threat from the sides first, but can't do anything with the one in the middle there. Perhaps yes. Attack her and use her as a shield. Defeat her quickly, Issei said before dashing forward himself. He ducked and moved to the left, dodging the left going for his neck and the one to the right going for his side. The chainsaws were dodged and now Issei was in prime position. He dodged the pole weapon to the left, so now the pole was to his right. He tilted his hand up and struck with his palm, right into Mira's chin. He lifted up and the force of Mira moving into Issei's hand and Issei's hand moving up, sent Mira flying into the air. Issei knew he had to remove this threat now, before focusing on the twins. He leapt over the chainsaw from Lee before leaping onto the chainsaw from Nell. Using Nell's weapon as a springboard, he rocketed into the sky and grabbed onto Mira's body that was coming down with gravity. He placed his right foot on the chin of Mira, which sent her down even faster as he held on, sending her straight into the ground. One of Riser's pawns retired. The 2 twins looked a little fearful before they looked at each other and nodded. Twin speak. Lee and Nell attacked at the same time, with Lee's chainsaw going high into Issei's throat, while Nell went for Issei's legs. Issei quickly leapt into the air and turned his body sideways, going right between both chainsaws before going into a roll on the ground. With quick movement, Issei sent his right foot out and swept Nell's feet out from under her. Taking her chainsaw, Issei blocked Lee's chainsaw before kicking her in the gut to send her back. Nell was getting up, but a powerful heel drop into her head sent her head into the wood. One of Riser's pawns. Retired. You. She spluttered, only to be surprised as Issei appeared suddenly in front of her. She fell backwards without even realizing it, only to disappear. Her throat was slit by the chainsaw in his hands. Dropping the unwieldy weapon, the dislocated-jawed human made his way out of the gym, only to be sent flying as an explosion right behind him, sending him hurtling across the baseball field. "Ah, I missed," spoke another voice. It was someone flying in the sky. He then looked around and noticed he was surrounded. There were 12 people around. Riser and the woman in the sky were flying above. Ravel was nearby watching with surprise. There was a young girl wearing a kimono. 2 swordswomen, one with light brown hair and green eyes. She wore a set of armor that was a mixture of European knight armor and Japanese samurai. She wielded a broadsword with a dagger on her hip. The other one had long black hair with a dark blue tint and brown eyes. Her hair had 5 thin ponytails with a golden accessory holding them all together. She is seen with a massive sword called a Zweihander. There was a gorgeous woman with short, light brown hair and gray eyes. Her hair had 3 red highlights in them. She wore a plain white mask on the right side of her face. She was dressed kind of like a street thug. There were 2 girls in maid uniforms and one dressed like a Brazilian dancer. Then there was a set of thins. Both were cat girls. One had pinkish hair and the other had bluish hair. They had gloves on that matched their hair. "You really are something, boy," Riser said. "I don't know what you are, but I will not lose my chance to marry Rias. You will have to go down this time. I don't care if I have to team you with all of my group. You will go down." He sneered. "Get him." He ordered his team. Issei was attacked on all sides. He ducked underneath a punch from the redhead cat girl, but a kick from the masked girl sent him backwards. It was then the broadsword came in from below to an uppercut, so he quickly rolled to the side, only for the Zweihander to cleave his right arm off from his body. His eyes went wide from the massive amount of pain. A strangled of pain came from between his lips, only for a punch from the blue-haired cat girl to send him up into the air a few feet before he fell onto his back. Riser looked into the sky as he awaited for Graphia's call, only for a gasp from his queen to alert him. How can this be? A mere human standing up from this amount of punishment? How absurd. It was then Riser was struck in the eye by a rock that Issei had flung with his good arm. It seemed Issei didn't like being belittled. Issei, however, sent out another cry of pain as his other arm was cleaved from his body, and his gut was sliced open from the Zweihander. "I'm going to lose today, I wish I could go all out," Issei thought as he stood up, only to be sent down again from a fist in his. He once again tried to stand up, until a fist sent him crashing down. "Stay down! Just give up!" spoke the girl with the mask that was keeping him down. Back in the observation room, Rias was glued to the screen. Why does he keep getting up? Intriguing, even after losing both of his arms this human is still able to stand up. "I'm more concerned about the sudden increase in strength when in the gymnasium," spoke another fellow. It was someone with green hair. "Ah, Juka. You're here now?" The red-haired man spoke. "You did request for me, Sirs. I've been here for a little bit. This human, he's not human. I can't tell you what he is, but there is no human that could be like this. The blood loss alone should have killed him, but he's not been pulled out by the system." "What do we do then?" Rias exclaimed. "We can't let him die. We let this play out," Sirzek said. "You can't be serious. We must allow him this chance," Sirzek said. "I agree with Sirzek, but I don't like it," Ajuka said. "Ugh!" Rias exclaimed, once again looking at the screen. Issei watched as fire flared up in Riser's eye. Once the fire went away, his eye was good as new. "Regeneration? They can regenerate, that means it wouldn't be bad to reveal my own." It was right then and there. Everyone in the observation room and on the battlefield watched as the stumps on Issei's body stopped bleeding and a milky white substance appeared from his body. It looked like a cocoon or saran wrap. About 10 seconds later, 2 arms shot out from the webbing. Issei had regenerated. All cuts and bruises on Issei's body cleared up and the jaw relocated itself. "Ah, much better," Issei said with a grin. "You aren't human," Riser swore, his eyes wide at the regeneration. "You are a phony! You cannot have that power of the phoenix, Garu," Issei thought and took a step to the right. From the left and right, 2 lines of magic energy shot from the 2 pawns with the French-made outfits. Each ensnared his legs, not allowing him to go anywhere. The one on his left leg pulled, starting to trip him, crush him. Riser swore in fury. Riser dove to the ground and literally ripped the earth from the ground before flinging it at Issei. Issei quickly regained his ground, and stomped, getting his footing. He spun in a circle, his legs spinning the magic wire around his body which forced both girls to be yanked towards him. They collided in mid-air, their necks snapping. This momentum of spinning allowed Issei to turn his right arm into a bat, backhanding the large boulder right into the girl with its Vihander, crushing her like a pancake. 1 knight and 2 pawn of Risers. Retired. Cirrus, no. Ravel spoke, only for Issei to surprise her by ripping the magic wires apart, and ducking behind the boulder as an enraged Riser threw fireball after fireball. You cannot be allowed to have this power. Only the phoenixes can. You mean I'm not allowed to regenerate but you can? Doesn't seem very fair. Issei muttered. Issei took a deep breath and using his palm, sent the boulder out like a bullet right towards Riser. Riser quickly dodged out of the way, but Isabella, the flying bomb girl, was right behind him and was struck dead on by the rock. Isabella! Ravel cried out, seeing Issei somehow becoming stronger. Issei had to sidestep to the right as Carloman, the broadsword user, slashed down where Issei was. You bastard! She swore as he dodged, only to be picked up by her throat and the waistband of her samurai armor. She was lifted just as a barrage of fireballs rained down at Issei's location, only for Carloman to scream as she was instead pelted with the fire. Issei quickly tossed Carloman away, right into the Brazilian girl. 1 queen, 1 pawns, 1 knight. Retired. Issei smirked and turned to Ravel, grinning evilly. Looks like I'm halfway there, he said, his face turned maniacal. She looked at him scared, and started to fly off into the sky, only for Issei to rush at her. Get away! I'm only watching! Ravel screamed. Back up in the observation room, everyone's eyes were glued to the screen. They watched as Issei had turned the tables within seconds, annihilating half of the combatants of Risers. Circex frowned. Seems like bloodlust has taken hold of Issei. He commented. No. Ajuka said. Watch. Issei was rushing at Ravel still, only for Lee and Isabella to appear in his way. Isabella already had her fist cocked back, assuming that Issei was still rushing at Ravel with tunnel vision. It was a trap. Issei immediately moved to the left, grabbing and pushing her in front of Isabella's fist, which was already in motion. It connected and the pawn's face was caved in from the rook's punch. Well, not really caved in, but she flew hard into a tree, defeated and disappearing. One of Riser's pawns. Defeated. Issei appeared behind Isabella and whispered into her ear. You missed. Such a shame you can't hit me, he said with a giggle, only for Isabella to spin with a roundhouse kick, but she fell for it again. Lee was pushed in front and actually was forced to kneel right in the perfect spot as Isabella's powerful kick shattered her face and sent her flying while disappearing. One of Riser's pawns. Defeated. You bastard! You tricked me! Isabella screamed in frustration and fury. I honestly didn't think you were that dumb. Issei laughed out. Issei's bloodlust had taken over, for this was not the sweet boy that Rias and Aquino had spent a few hours with. Luckily, Issei was well in control. Isabella roared and attacked with another punch towards Issei, but Issei was ready. He leapt into the air and kicked her in the face with both feet. This kick, however, was using Isabella as a springboard as Issei rushed towards Maihi, the last combatant bishop. Maihi was surprised as she was keeping her distance, but Issei had closed it almost instantly. Maihi closed her eyes only for herself to disappear. Issei crashed into a tree but stood up. He turned and even Isabella was gone. Riser's bishop and rook retired. Only 2 pieces remain. 1 bishop and the king. Issei turned to face Riser, only to be tackled by a flying inferno. Issei felt his skin burning off, so he quickly hardened the hypodermis of his skin. It was the innermost layer of his skin. The hypodermis started to turn into scales. Issei was slammed into the school building from the rage-filled phoenix. Riser was not finished with this attack and sent Issei into the air with an uppercut, before leaping into the sky and blasting him down to the ground with a massive flamethrower. Issei impacted the ground, forming a crater. Yes, give it to me, this is what I've been wanting. Combat. This is glorious combat. Issei thought to himself as he stood up. The skin around his stomach was burned away, revealing golden scales. A dragon? Circex thought, frowning. No, he doesn't have anything with dragons, right? A new species maybe? Ajuka suggested. Perhaps, but this isn't like any dragon species I know. The regeneration is unheard of. It could compete with the phoenix regeneration. The stamina, the strength, the speed, but he smells just like a human. Could he have such a great ability of hiding himself? xDoug suggested. I do not know, Ajuka said with a frown. They watched as Issei was tossed around the field by Riser, and Issei wasn't fighting back. Yet there was a maniacal look on Issei's face. He didn't seem concerned about the flames. What are you, Issei? Rias thought, wanting to get to know him more. In the observation room, it was xDoug, Ajuka, Grafia and Rias. Her peerage was back in the human world, awaiting the results. Issei was hit with one more fireball before Riser stopped, heavy breathing being heard from the devil. Just give up, Riser demanded, breathing hard. You cannot defeat a member of the House of Phoenix, he exclaimed, only to watch as Issei stood back up. Somehow, his underwear and pants survived, yet on his all the skin was gone except the scales. It only took a few seconds for the milky white substance to cover his, and his body repaired itself. Give up? Oh, but I'm just starting to enjoy myself. Come, let's see if you can handle this, Issei thought. He uses fire, so I know electricity has to be used, right? Well, let's take a risk, Issei thought to himself as his eyes started to glow. The entire eye glowed gold yellow as his hands sparked to life. Yellow bolts of electricity arced in his hands before he dashed at Riser. Issei leapt into the sky and cocked his arm back. Riser's eyes opened wide as a vision encompassed him. All he could see in front of him was dust, but 6 red eyes appeared from the dust, glaring at Riser. The eyes all turned into the same golden yellow color as Issei's, and 2 large dragon-like scaly wings flew out from each side of the dust cloud. Riser started to see a faint outline of the beast as the yellow glow started to arc like electricity in what seemed to be the creature's neck, only for Riser to scream. I surrender, he said, closing his eyes as he tried to escape the nightmare vision. Issei's fist struck down right where Riser was. The power of Issei's powered-up fist sent a shockwave outwards, ripping the earth around him for 3 yards in each direction, forming a crater. Issei stood up and grinned. He had won. As soon as the adrenaline wore off from the fight, Issei collapsed. He fell to his hands and knees, as his vision started to go black. I'm so tired. Damn, this body cannot handle the power of my original self, he said before passing out. Issei was retrieved from the battlefield and taken away. Issei, was he really human? Issei woke up on a couch, covered in a thick blanket sheet. He sat up rather quickly, looking around with confusion. Oh right, I passed out because I used my true power. Ah, you are awake, spoke an unfamiliar voice. Issei turned his head to the voice, staring at him. It was a red-headed man sitting in Rias's chair, with his fingers intertwined and his chin on his knuckles. Then standing nearby was another man, with green hair and light blue eyes. Issei looked at them with curiosity and confusion, his head tilted. Can I help you too? Issei asked with a smile. What are you? The redhead asked, getting right to the point. I don't follow, Issei said. I am a human. He had to keep up appearances, and as far as Issei felt, he was human. He felt like he did belong here. Sure, he came from the stars, but he felt human inside. That's what he truly thought. Humans don't regenerate. Humans don't do what you did, Ajuka replied with a frown. Yet I don't detect any lies nor malice, so you truly think of yourself as human, despite not being it, Issei shrugged. I don't really know how else to say what I am. I suppose if I read mythology, the best I could say was a dragon-human hybrid, he said, once again lying really well, but it was valid. Damn, I played my hand too much. I shouldn't have gotten involved in the raiding game, but I also couldn't allow Rias to be sad. I couldn't allow Rias to be sad here. I thought everything I did was to blend in. Maybe I'm changing to actually be part of this world, Issei thought with a wry smile on his face. He looked up at the redhead. I see. A human-dragon hybrid. I don't suppose you know how you came to be? The man asked. Well, you see, when a mommy human and a daddy dragon fall in love very much, Issei said, giggling at his joke. xDoug smiled a bit at that before humming. Are you a threat to my sister? Judging by your hair, you mean Rias? I have no interest in harming her if that is what you are asking, Issei said, tilting his head. Do you think I want to hurt her? A brother has his worries, he said before sighing. All right, I believe we have what we came for. Take care of my sister. Sure thing, Issei said with a smile. He gave them a wave as the pair of devils disappeared into their respective magic circles. About 5 minutes later, the door to the ORC opened and Rias stepped in, alone. Ah, I think I met your brother, Issei said, scratching the back of his head. Rias would normally tease about this, but she looked very serious. She took a seat on the couch next to Issei and poked his cheek. You don't have the aura of a dragon, you have the aura of a human being, yet you are not a human. So what are you for real? As I told your brother, I am a human-dragon hybrid. Mother was a human, father a dragon. You are not telling the whole truth, but I don't want to get into a fight over it. I want to thank you as well. You saved me from a marriage that I abhorred. I honestly didn't really think you could do it. You really surprised all of us. We all thought you were a human, Issei shrugged. As far as I feel human just like the rest of you guys. Issei, we're not human. Everyone you've met through the ORC or the raiding games have all been devils. Devils as in the leader of the underworld in the Bible? The Bible isn't completely accurate, but it mostly is. We're the demons of the Bible, but we are called devils. My brother and the other man were super devils and one of the 4 leaders of our faction. Ah, I see. So you are devil? So are you going to take my soul? Rias gave a wry smile. Why? Have something you want? She teased. Issei shook his head. No. I'd rather keep my soul intact. Issei replied, only for Rias to laugh. We don't take souls. That's just a myth. Oh good. I don't know if my soul would be tasty or not. Issei said, which drew another laugh from the redhead. You're an honest boy. I like that. Rias said, getting up from the couch. As she was returning to her desk, the ORC club doors opened and the rest of her peerage came in. Akino and Kiba gave a wave and a smile, while Kaneko just beelined for the seat next to him. Issei placed some chocolate into her hands, and she started to devour the confection. Rias held back a chuckle as she put some paperwork in front of her. She started to read it before letting out a sigh. Something wrong, President? Akino asked as she went to Rias's side. Just been a stressful week. Good but stressful, she said. She looked up to watch as Issei was reading a book while Kaneko was almost snug up to him eating his chocolate. Akino smiled. You need to relax? How about you go and take a nice long bath? I'll work on your work while you're gone. She offered the king. Rias sighed and brushed her bangs out of her eyes, behind her right ear. That sounds wonderful. Thanks, Akino, Rias said, disappearing into the back. Akino took a seat in Rias's desk and started to work on the paperwork. Issei looked up from his book and stared at the clock, and that is when his stomach made this loud noise. It sounded like there was a dragon in the room. Akino looked up and giggled. Era. Looks like we need to feed you before you feast on us. Akino teased, standing up. Oh, that's not necessary. I can go home and get something to eat. Nonsense. Once Rias gets back, I think she'll want to talk to you about being in the ORC, and I quite enjoy cooking. If you're sure, Issei said, sitting back on the couch. I'll be back as soon as I can. Akino said, disappearing into the back as well. Issei sighed and picked his book up again. It was a book from the town library. Was located in the mature section. It was an erotic book called Book of M. It was an erotica about a woman in a secret society. It was a recommended book that he found on the internet, among some others. He figured that this was a good way to learn about the world as well, so he made it his commitment to read books that were recommended. I see. So women like this thing called, and some like for a man to take control? Issei thought to himself as he read the passage. He knew now to take everything at face value now, as he had learned from the experiences in the ORC, but over the course of many books, he learned quite a bit about the females. Maybe I should start engaging in this activity of romance? Would that be a normal thing, or could I remain the way I am? Need to research this more. Issei put his book down after placing his bookmark in the bag. He stuffed the book into his backpack, and it was then Akino came out from the back with Rias in tow. Akino was pushing a cart that had several plates of food on it. Kiba chuckled. You've not lived until you've had Akino's cooking, he said to Issei. Kaneko thumbed up in agreement. Well, now I am eager to try her cooking if all this is true. You guys are too kind, Akino said, placing plates in front of everyone, including herself and Rias. Rias was sitting at her desk. The food was ham, eggs and cheese on a bed of rice. The egg wasn't scrambled, but filled with yolks, so when you cut it, it would pour itself over the rice. There was also an apple cut up into pieces as well as a glass of water for Issei, while the others had their own drinks. I didn't know what you liked to drink, so water was the safe bet. I prefer water, Issei said, taking a sip before he started to dig into his food. One poke into the egg with his fork and then a big scoop of it into his mouth later. His eyes widened and he started to scarf down her cooking. Everyone watched with amusement as the dragon hybrid devoured Akino's food as if he was starving. The man shoveled the food into his mouth like a vacuum cleaner. He actually finished his plate and turned to Akino. holding his plate out. More. He asked for a single stand of rice on the corner of his lips on the right. Akino couldn't help but smile warmly, seeing the pure expression of happiness and gratitude on his face. Era, you're an honest boy. I suppose I should take this as a compliment, Akino said with a giggle, before refilling Issei's plate. Issei nodded rapidly. It's really good. You wow, he said, unable to really express any more of his opinion on the food. This once again got Akino to giggle. She has a really nice laugh. Again, thank you, Akino said, handing Issei his plate again. This time he took it slow and ate it like a normal person would, getting Rias to chuckle and Akino to giggle. The meal went on in silence after that, with only the sounds of appreciation, clinking silverware or the glasses hitting the table when being put down. When dinner finished, Rias cleared her throat. Seeing as you now know about the supernatural, I only think it's fitting that I tell you more about the world you're finding yourself in. Well, for starters, the ORC and the Student Council are all devils. Every single member, except for yourself. So many devils. What about fallen angels and angels? None go to this school, Rias said. It was then she talked about the Great War. The three-way war between the three factions. The war where 2 dragons interrupted and caused much damage. How they were sealed into sacred gears. Rias explained everything and answered every question that Issei had. He had learned a lot of knowledge, and now you know most of what you get yourself into. Just remember this. You are now part of the ORC, meaning you represent the devils as well, so anything you do against the fallen angels and angels would make us look bad. You don't want that, do you? No, ma'am, he said, standing up and saluting. You can count on me to behave. Rias giggled and nodded. Good to know. Well, it's getting late and I think it's time for everyone to get back to their homes. We have school tomorrow, Rias said. Yes, President. Everyone, including Issei, said. Issei stood up and grabbed his back, before heading out of the club building before anyone else. What an interesting boy, Rias said. She had said it many times, but it was just true. Issei was a mystery. Issei was walking home when he came upon something that piqued his interest. There was a pair of people standing at a street corner. They were covered head to toe in a white robe with green stripes in the middle, as well as around the edges of their hood. The one on the right had blue hair with a green fringe over her right eye. She was carrying a giant sword on her back wrapped in bandages. The one on the left had nut hair and violet eyes. She was not carrying a sword, but there was an armband on her right arm. They were staring directly at Issei, studying him. So, you're the sinful human that's buddy with devils, spoke the blue-haired girl. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the xDoug-Dimmadome-x for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.